Hi, it's Chris Titley here, and on today's episode of Scoreboard, I'm joined by Trevor Hendy. Trevor, thank you so much for being part of this series.
Thanks, Chris. It's been a while. We've been trying to get it organised, mate. But
We have.
stoked to be sitting with you, buddy.
We got there at the end. Trevor, we're sitting on the 1st of May. 1st of May, a new month, the fifth month of the year. Wow. How's your 2025 started, Trevor?
Thanks, mate. Good question to start. Yeah, good, actually. I had some interesting life shifts over the last few years, just in around really understanding how to be centred, balanced, present. Sounds, a bit dicky, but present in the moment, but very much understanding what I'm being asked to do in the world right now. What's the world calling of me right now? And start of 2025, I feel like I came out of a bit of a healing, a bit of a rebalancing. And one of the key things that shifted was I started working with the leadership at Collingwood Footy Club. So something that I was, it was like a full circle moment. I was working back there with Nathan Buckley from 2013 to 2016, and I've been working with Craig McRae, Fly, and a few other players on and off over the years, but Craig the last couple of years, and the job just came up, and I think it was just meant to be, So 2025 has been interesting because I'm back in football and I'm back in, really had to put together a program that we all work together on, that we now roll out every single week, throughout the season. So that's been fascinating. Plus I'm, working into the corporate side of footy as well and helping the leaders over there and helping the partners. And so it's been a really interesting role. And the other thing is I've got my own podcast, which is Future Lab, supported by Melrose, the Future Lab range. And I've got Dr. Denise Furness and Danny Irbinder, which is the two most incredibly intelligent people in the health, wellness, longevity field. And the three of us have been having amazing interviews and conversations with people around the world. So 2025 has been come out of 24, healed a few things, 25, busy, back in football. And after being an Ironman, I'm back in AFL football, but also talking health and longevity a lot. And to be honest, Chris, there's certain moments where I think these are probably the best days of my life. I'm probably enjoying life more balanced and more holistically than ever before. So short answer is it's been fantastic.
Mate, that's brilliant. And it wouldn't be the first person to say that you look a little bit like Nathan Buckley.
There you go. I have actually had that before, yeah. And Buxton,
maybe it's a little goatee. You need a little goatee, mate. Yeah.
Need a little goatee, yeah. He's probably fitter than me at the moment. He looks like he could run out in the field again. He's that fit. I caught up with him last week, and first time in a while. It was really good to see him.
Mate, so the love of footy, has it always been there as well in the background, or is this just an opportunity that came about?
Yeah, born in Melbourne, in Preston, and that's the Collingwood region, basically. And so the whole family at Always Barrack for Collingwood had players come over for dinner and stuff with my grandparents or great-grandparents. And so there's a real connection there. And then, settled on the Gold Coast when I was 5. Never played AFL footy till I was 41. I played 2 seasons of Old Boys. Ran into one of my teammates at a workshop yesterday. But always been mad, fanatical Collingwood supporter. And funny because back in the 70s and 80s, Gold Coast was, very much NRL. But so many Victorians moved to the Gold Coast that it's a very big AFL population now too. So it's kind of good. A lot of Collingwood supporters on the Gold Coast, but I've done a lot of work with them over the years and love footy. I ran around with Peter Moore's number on my back, number 30, and kicking the football in the street with my buddy Damien, who ran around with Peter Dacos's number on his back, number 35. And so the funny thing is now in my leadership group, I've got Darcy Moore and Nick Dacos. And
so starting to feel old then.
Yeah, it's a beautiful serendipity, though, to be looking after the young men, the sons of two people that I idolised when I was a kid.
I'm going to touch on the idolising because it's come up quite a bit in the podcast. So you had an idol, and what was about that idol that you wanted to be? And secondly, taking a little bit forward on that question, did you ever meet your idol?
Yeah, look, I had a few. I think obviously in footy, as I just mentioned, it was Pete Moore, Peter Dacos, but also Mark Williams, who ended up coming up to the Brisbane Bears. And after I was an athlete and we'd go to the same functions, I'd end up kicking the football in the street with Mark Williams and hanging out with him, and so that was pretty cool. I met him, and he was fantastic, and we still text each other every now and then and say g'day, and he's still, heavily successful in AFL. But the three ones that really sort of stood out was probably, well, there's actually four. It was Michael Jordan, who I stood behind while he was dropping $1,000 bets in a casino once, and I went to say hello, and his security dragged me away, so that was interesting. So I didn't get to meet him, but that was interesting. Greg Norman, got to meet him and loved Greg. Was fantastic. Spent one night, Greg, myself, and Kieran Perkins sitting in the corner of a bar after a function and just talking, and then people would walk past and look up and go, is that Kieran Perkins, Trevor Hendy, Greg Norman's in there? So it was an interesting experience, and a great fellow, Greg. Ayrton Senna, I actually met. I raced in the Celebrity Grand Prix. When he won the main Grand Prix, I won the Celebrity Grand Prix, and I met Ayrton a couple of those functions. And, he's a nice enough guy, but he was on the move. But ultimately, the other one that, I don't know if I'd say I idolised, but Kelly Slater. I watched from afar and I almost felt like an older brother, and we ended up becoming best mates and been on a crazy journey through life together and got to be in his corner for a lot of his world titles and stuff like that. So that's been really cool. But bringing it full circle, I had Mark Bennett's, Grant Kenny and Dwayne Tyers are all Ironmen that I idolised in my own sport and movement, and obviously I got to meet those guys, and to be honest, they're three of the biggest contributors to my life, to my early life. Mark Bennett's was a fantastic supporter, even though I raced him. Grant Kenny took me under his wing, and Dwayne Tyers was my best mate. Travelled the world with him. He was 5 years older than me, but did almost more than anybody in the early days, other than maybe our coach Bill, to look after me. So I've had good experiences with my idols.
And mate, when someone aspires to be you, how does that make you feel?
I've had some really cool experiences with that. With obviously in the older days, it's not that long ago, of course, Chris, but a couple of decades. There would be a lot of young crew that I'd get fan letters and fan mail and got signed a lot of autographs and stuff that you got to do with the Uncle Toby series back in the day. We had big crowds and big coverages and stuff, and there was two things that I treated as with gratitude, like as a gift, and that was the media and the fans. And I don't know how I got onto that. I think maybe Greg Norman, or I heard him once saying how much he hated the media, and I thought, oh, that doesn't feel right, and so I always thought, the media have actually got children as well, and they've got families and everything else. So I'd get to know, because the media normally follow each sport around, I'd get to know them and their kids and their partners, and I'd catch up and they'd go to do an interview and I'd ask them how their family was, and I just actually felt like they were part of my team. And then I felt the fans were the same. I kind of felt like, how ridiculous, this little insecure, freckly, skinny little kid has grown up to become, people are looking at me like as if there's something they can learn from me or get from me, or I'm adding some inspiration to their life. So I kind of saw it as a great honour and a privilege. And I always took the time. I was the last off the beach. And I always felt like, I felt like really grateful for that experience. So I still get it. I still bump into people all the time that bump into me, and I can tell they're about 10 years younger than me. So they were sitting on their parents' lap watching while I was racing, and they say, oh my God, I grew up watching you on TV. And so that's not going to last forever. That period of running into those people. And I just really appreciate it still to be able to bounce back and say, oh, yeah, cool, it was a fun time, and you used to watch it with your parents and just talk about it, So it's a good thing.
With bubbly energy now, like looking back and being confident, you did touch on the word insecure as a child. I'm curious about that. I'd love to talk about your youth and in terms of where you are now. You're confident and you're bubbly. You're still a little insecure, and how's that sort of relationship panned out?
Yeah, on the scale of 1 to 10 on insecurity, I think it's around about a 1 these days, or a point something. It pops up every now and then, but I can't really remember when. But I think let's work this from here backwards. I think I'm not insecure anymore because I'm really clear in who I am. And I understand that I'm actually quite a soft, gentle person. I want to see other people win. I'm a big lover. I get really emotional when I feel people break through things. I'm a real, empath, that term empath. I just really feel like as if I just want people to win. It's in my spirit. It's not even in my personality. It's in my personality, but it's in my spirit. It's deep in who I am. So because I'm now aware of that, I'm quite confident to cry, open up, care, share. I've become probably a solid or a good coach, a life coach, counselor, mentor, guide, because I'm really comfortable in my own skin. But that's a full circle that I've done, because if I go back to, traveled around Australia for 2 years from 3 to 5 with my parents in a caravan, loved it, grew up hanging out in Indigenous communities in remote Australia, with my 5-year-old sister who we were best mates, never had an argument in our life, my mum and dad. So I had this beautiful family unit. Then settled on the Gold Coast, and at 8 years of age went to Nippers and cried on the first day when we had to swim 6 laps across the Surfside 6 swimming pool. Across a motel swimming pool, 6 laps. But I'd swam in the Daly River, I'd swam all around the country. But seeing kids getting warmed up and looking at me and feeling the energy of, there's a competition, this is important apparently, I cried and broke down. And my father, he actually he pulled me aside, said, run the race without him, and then hugged me. And then when the race finished and everybody finished and went down the beach for the next events, he went, all right, it's your turn to do the 6 laps now. One of the best things any human has ever done for me was to actually say, look, I'm not going to make you do what you're shit scared of doing, but I'm going to take away the confront and allow you to finish the task, but without the overwhelming confront, And so I did the 6 laps and went, oh, I can do that, and then every single task in my life that I've ever struggled with and felt insecure and worried about, ultimately I've worked my way through it and then been able to nail it. But to finish the story, at about year 2, I was in year 2 and I was walking back through the year 3 area, and this year 3 kid, I went to have a drink out of the bubbler, grabbed my head and smashed into the bubbler. He said, you're year 2, get out of the year 3 area. It was my first experience after travelling Australia and worked, hanging out in beautiful communities. And, it was my first experience with this other energy that lives on the planet of, F you, I'm going to shut you down or whatever. And I also remember the rubbish from kid 3 kids up, blowing under my feet during recess. This is crazy recollection, right? And I looked down at the rubbish, and then, because it was windy, and looked back up, and right when I looked up, this teacher stepped in and went whack and hit me with a cane and said, pick up your rubbish. And it wasn't my rubbish, So this formulation of a story of, I just got in trouble. I got smashed up for just drinking where I'm not supposed to. I got in trouble for someone
Drinking water,
rubbish.
someone else's rubbish, not your fault, nothing.
Yeah.
I'm just doing my thing, right? And I'm getting belted.
The third crazy experience, year 3. I've just realised these all happened in year 2 and year 3. Year 3, we're doing this test. Back in the day when you did tests in year 3, finished the test, and I was just kind of glancing at my friend next to me, and I'm just staring, but I'm staring towards his desk. Teacher came over and, you're cheating, like this, and I'd already finished and I wasn't cheating. I was just like, Anyway, I got sent to the principal's office, and to tell him I'd been cheating, I got to the principal's office. I looked in the front door, and he was sitting with his back to me at his desk, and there was a chair at the front. So I sat down in the chair at the front for a little while, and then went back and didn't go inside the principal's office. I went back. The teacher went, what did the principal say? And I said, told me not to do it anymore. And she went, you haven't been to the principal, have you? Like this, and picked up the phone, rang him. And then the reason I didn't want to go in, because I didn't want my parents to be told that I was cheating and I was in trouble. And in the end, my parents got told I was lying, cheating, and trouble.
Oh, right, you got a double dose.
I got the double. What you ever find what you fear.
It's not the cheating it's not the cheating that I'm worried about. It's the lying to me. Yeah, that's right.
So the funny thing was, I grew up in the surf club, fell in love with the surf club, but then, the best guy in the sport in my club, he stole the girlfriend in my mind, and there's a whole story. And back then, man, it was pretty brutal. We got flushed and initiated, and that happened by my peers. And it's in my mind. I can't trust teachers. I can't trust people older than me. Can't trust my friends. Can't trust girls. Can't trust turning the other way. Like, it was just this weird thing that built up subconsciously that I think a lot of kids, for people listening, because I've done a lot of work and I've studied a lot of counselling and got sort of many qualifications in that area. And it's crazy. It's like, oh, it really formulated the wounds that were sitting inside of me. And when I finally decided I wanted to win, what was behind that was because the winner gets the girl. The winner gets to call the shots. The winner gets the respect. Everybody laughs at the winner's jokes. The winner basically had the power and influence, and the winner was big and the loser was small, in my experience. So I was last to everything and he was first to everything. And it was just like something snapped in me. And it was like at one level it took my power, but the power that I grabbed onto was a power based on, I don't ever want to feel this anymore. And I had to, it's kind of like, I'm not going to be the one feeling it, everyone else can feel it. So funnily enough, in 2 years, I went from being 5th out of 6th as a junior in my surf club, out of 300 clubs in Australia, in Ironman, to the Australian Open Ironman champion, and never won a race. When I set the goals, and the goals were fantastic, the training, the coaching, Billy Haylock's program, everything was fantastic. But a lot of it came from this hatred, this anger, this angst inside of me that I hated feeling small. And so I went from insecure to secure, but I was secure based on, because now I'm the guy, I'm the winner, I look good, no one's beat me in ages, yeah, you want to take me on? Like, it was a really strong, devilish, competitive personality. And what's funny about it is it got me into the Hall of Fame, broke all the records, I got all the sponsors, I got all that sort of stuff. And because I still had the personality of a nice guy that was easy to talk to, and I was the last off the beach, I was also able to balance that with getting respect and sponsors really looking after me, and I could do all those sort of things. But the inner turmoil inside of me, the unresolved shit that was going on was kind of crazy. And there was no one around me that I could talk to about it, because in anyone else's perspective, I'm the winner. In fact, most people were seeing me as the one that they would draw their confidence from. So I needed to meet some people, which I ultimately did, that knew about what was going on inside of me so that they could actually help me alleviate that. And when I did, I walked into Keith Maitland, the chiropractor, my beautiful mate. I walked into his office, never met him before, walked in and he told me, you might be dairy intolerant. I'm thinking, don't take chocolate and ice cream off me. That's the only thing that's keeping me alive. And he also said to me, I think you've got some anger issues, maybe some suppressed anger. It's like a fatherly issue or something. And I was standing there literally going, smiling, because that's what I do, I was smiling, and behind me, I'm marching around behind me going, who the fuck does this guy think he is? Anger, like this. And then I went, oh, mental note to self, I do appear to be angry about what he said. So the long story short about the insecurity was, it was like a wound inside of me. It was a fear and a wound down there deep from very young. But it also became one of my best teachers, because from it, I tried to get power from looking good, being the best, being number one. And it's almost like I built up an alter ego or another persona that was unstoppable, but that was built on shaky grounds. I think if you talk about a pyramid and you picture a pyramid's got a very stable base, but if you picture a Christmas tree, it looks like a pyramid up on a weird little stand that, when the wind blows, if the doors open, the Christmas tree falls over. That's kind of what my power was like. It looked powerful, but if you scratch below the surface, you'd realize I was actually still hadn't dealt with the insecurity, So met the right people, dug into where it came from, and what it was about, not just how it affected me, but also what it would feel like to let it go. So therefore, what was it teaching me, and ultimately the lesson was actually about authentic power. It was actually about authentic influence, and it was about, I work with a lot of crew, a lot of leadership teams and a lot of people, individuals and stuff, and I'm always talking about shifting from win at all costs, hello, I know that one very well, to win on all levels, which really goes, as soon as you say, because win on all costs is an attitude, win on all levels is an understanding. It's like, well, what does that mean? So it invites the question of, So to win on all levels, we have to work out who we actually are. And as I worked out who I was, I realized that sensitive kid that was getting knocked out of me from the teeth in the bubbler and the cane on the hand and off to the thing, that sensitive kid had been in a battle the whole life to learn this lesson. And so I threw the insensitivity out in favor of the power, and then lost the true power, which was the sensitivity. So I often talk about that scene in the Avatar where Jake goes up to the cave and he has to connect with his Igran, and Natiri lands her Igran, and she says, Jake, you're going to connect with the Igran and you're going to make the bond, and it's going to give you wings and blah, blah. It's going to be incredible. And, and there's only one of them for you, and he looks around the corner and they're all trying to fight each other and everything. He says, how do I know which one's mine? And she said, it's the one that tries to kill you, and I so often see my sensitivity as the thing that at one level also tried to kill me, because as a sensitive kid, I got bullied, belittled, beaten up, chased, harassed. So I hid it, became like everybody else, but lost my true self. So as I got that and invited that back, that sensitivity is there now, but with the wisdom. Like, they can't be bullied and pushed around and everything else. So it's like gone full circle to understand it. So long answer, mate, but that's been the journey, and it's why I am where I am, because I was in turmoil. I broken relationship, financial bust, broken, body was falling apart. It was showing I just thought, if I just keep winning, it'll all be okay. But everything fell apart. That was, and I'm like basically running along with one arm, with tendonitis, going, but I'll keep winning, And so the old something's got to give forced me into the chiropractor. I was lucky that the chiropractor knew all about emotions and chemicals, and he knew NET, and he knew kinesiology, and he was a bit woo-woo, he was outside the box, because I'd worked with the best people, but I needed somebody who wasn't the best in that category. He was actually amazing in that category anyway, and the best, but I needed somebody who was out exploring crazy things, and that's what I found. And I've ended up becoming that person. Instead of becoming the bully to others that I did for a while through sport, I've become the guy that actually helps others recognize what's been buried and what they can release, and how they can move back into who they really are. And I tell you, life's a lot easier when you know who you are and you just go about being that.
When you did hit your peak and you were winning, when it came to criticism and feedback and listening, was this sort of like, no, I'm the best in the world at what that I do, and I'm not gonna take anything. Looking back, was it a bit like that?
So perfectly said. Like, I didn't have to take criticism. Like, criticism, what criticism? Like, if it's coming at me and it's criticism, well, it can't be real. So it's just, because look at my trophy cabinet, like it's amazing, the ego, because I love Eckhart Tolle. Because people think of arrogance as ego. Arrogance is one form of ego, but so is insecurity is a form of our ego. It's a part of our ego. And so you might say one's on the back cover, insecurity is hidden behind us, but the ego or the arrogance, so the arrogance is hidden at the front cover. We push that out to people so they can't see that we really don't believe we're that good, and they're both false and they feed each other. And so I didn't have to take the feedback, because it was like, no, I've actually built this whole life so I don't have to be the one that shifts or changes. And it wasn't until, the relationships with the most beautiful people to me, the right people, started to fall apart, that I was like, oh, I'm starting to lose. I don't care if I lose you, lose this, lose that. As long as I win this, and then the loyal people stick close to you, and then that starts getting fractured, and your own health starts getting fractured. And then it's like, whoa, what's going on here? And then the other Eckhart Tolle thing that he talks about is the inner readiness. Like, for someone to talk to me about my deep emotions and some energy and some spiritual traits of myself that I need to embrace and welcome. And I was so ready to understand this because I was at the end of my tether, But before that, I would have been like, what, you wanker? What are you talking about? Oh, yeah, okay, mate. I'm just going to go to the bar and get my next drink card and, celebrate my next win. Like, it was real wankerish territory. But what we called that winning, and because I could hide the arrogance enough and be on the surface the good guy, I kind of got away with it for quite a while. But inside of me, I just felt like I deserved everything, and and it was the best thing to let go of, because this sense of entitlement from being a winner actually stopped me from having all the things I truly wanted, which was love, connection, peace, I didn't know what peace or stillness was. I just knew what winning was, and you win, you get some space for a little while. But it was all out of fear, it was all out of, not wanting to be bullied anymore and all that. And once I realized it and released it, I was like, it was like being, sounds weird, but there's I was 26 and it was actually in the middle of my 27th year, right? And this is what's funny. I finally heard John Denver's Rocky Mountain High. And the words to that song, because it's after he did very similar work, and he wrote the song, and it says, he was born in the summer of his 27th year, coming home to a place he'd never been before. He left yesterday behind him. You might say he was born again. You might say he found a key to every door. And when I say born again, I'm not talking religion. I'm talking about I just realised who I was, but as an adult, and just by having brave people around me say, dude, there's so much more to you than this. Like they were saying to me, this winner that everybody looks up to? It is tiny compared to who you really are. I'm like, what? What do you mean who I really am? They go, no, your spirit, your love, your connection, your enthusiasm is far bigger than this persona of a winner, So yeah, it all happened in that summer of the 27th year, and I literally felt like I was coming home, and I felt like I'd never been there before. So it's so accurate.
But being that age, a young adult, right? People do quote unquote silly things in their early 20s, and they're an adult and whatnot.
Yeah.
I mean, your relationship with regret, like looking back now, like you go, oh, yeah, that was dumb, but like you go, well, that's kind of where you're at that life. You're not having kids, you don't have a mortgage, all these serious things in life, and you're sort of a kid still. How do you kind of now translate that back to the 25-year-old that's at the top of their game and saying, mate, just calm?
Yeah, you've experienced regret, right? Like one of the things that I feel was that I felt like because I was the one in my own mind, I'm the guy. I felt like as if, as I said before, I was entitled to everything. Ring the manager, I need a new car. Like it's just really entitled. And because of who I really am, like because of the degree to which, that childhood I told you about, my sister and my mum and dad traveling in Australia and, really grounded in earth. Like, so there's this backdrop of who I really am. And it's back there going, come on, mate, come on. I know no one else can see that what you're doing is a load of shit because it looks good and everyone's on the ride and we're all making money from it. But at some point in time, we've got to have a look at this. It's almost like the higher self or this other, non-ego self is back there going, all right, when he's finished being the guy, being the one. And so what was interesting about that, Chris, is when I did realize it, I went through a period, a healthy, natural, but difficult period of regret, of guilt, of broken. I felt broken. I felt like, what have I done? Like, what have I been doing? Right from the point of view of the way I carried myself and just losing my track in relationship and just in like being unloyal, all sorts of stuff that was just part and parcel of being the guy, And when I look back on it, it was like, what have you done? And it was really hard to stomach and deal with. So the reason I say it is because when I went through that necessary period of, oh, you dickhead, you idiot, my God, which is, it's like you can't beat yourself up forever because that's actually a pattern in it as well, but there's a healthy amount of it where you go, you do it for long enough to really feel what it felt like for the other person to be around you, and I think in some ways, to whatever degree that's waned from, I'm 98% feeling regret to we've got 0.1% regret, that thing has been a teacher the whole time as well. And the reason I frame it that way is because it's almost like regret and guilt became one of my most beautiful tools that I was, or what do you call it, counterparts that I had to deal with, because it kept pointing my attention back to who are you really? Is that really what you want others to feel around you? Is that who you are? Are you happy with that? And that sounds hard, but it wasn't perfectionism and it wasn't whipping like it was in sport. It was more like hey, it's time to take a good long look, you know? And so what's happened is, I'll call it eating humble pie, right? And I ate that many doses of humble pie over that many years, thinking, oh my God, I did say that, didn't I? Oh my God, I remember thinking that. You know, like it just kept, you know, if you're in
The
it strongly,
flashbacks. Yeah.
flashbacks of 10 years of riding that train, you know? And, but each time I've been able to, oh, wow, reconcile it, you know, transmute it. So now what the funny thing, and the reason I said that whole explanation is because now every time I get a win, a gain, a step forward, a breakthrough, a joyful experience, all those years of feeling what it felt like to take that win and turn it into the false power, you know, has left me with this real sense of gratitude for everybody that played out that we just had a win, or that just broke through, or I felt more peace today. So every time I feel better, I've got this intense gratitude and almost like reverence is the closest word I can think of, like awe that, oh wow, I'm so appreciative and reverent that I'm in the place in my life where, oh, I've had a win, but it doesn't come with baggage, or it doesn't come with, oh, you dickhead, you had to beat someone to get that win. You know, you had to put someone else down for you to rise up. So 25-year-old me, when I look back, and I'm going to go more like 23, 22-year-old me, 23, was riding the wave and riding high. Good analogy as an Ironman and a surfer, just riding the
Metaphor.
wave
It's a dad
and
joke. Yeah.
riding high. But I rode it right up the beach and beached myself. You know, I forgot to take the rip back out. And but I see it as the greatest gift, because that experience of knowing what it feels like to not be authentic, true to yourself, to not make a difference in the world, but to grab things for yourself, to be selfish. And I wouldn't say that I'm selfless. I have moments of selflessness, but a lot of the time I'm still working through and releasing the self. But that whole lesson has been the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Honestly, I could easily say my kids, you know, I call Jackie my first wife, not my ex-wife, you know, and my beautiful wife Jo, and the like incredible 30 years we've had together. Like these are gifts, you know, and the life I live now is incredible. But one of the most beautiful things that I can hark back on is the lessons that I've learned. You know, I've learned, oh my God, I'm so thankful that I went through that shit.
And when you are public speaking and someone shows a race or some footage on YouTube, etc., of that point in time when you're 23 or 24, what's the feeling? Is it like, are you proud, or can you describe it?
Yeah, it's not a big polarity anymore. It's not like, oh, that's not me, and it's not like, yeah, look at me go. It's somewhere in the middle of, oh, wow, yeah, that was a cool day. Oh, yeah. Oh, wow, like it's pride. You know, I feel really proud. I feel proud that I went through all that and learnt all that. I feel proud that I explored win at all costs, and that I did it as well as anybody, you know, for a period of time. So ultimately, like, oh, when I do things, I do them well, you know. Like if I'm going to play negative power games, I did it well, you know.
Yeah.
But then that's kind of like the baby in the bathwater. If I throw out the bathwater of the unconsciousness and the ego, the baby that's left is I like to do things well. And if I apply that to caring, or if I apply that to service to others or service to a greater good, then I do that well as well, because the traits were always there to do things, play 100%. So I do feel proud, and I love that people saw the joy and the magic in it, because the whole time that was going on, and this might not come across in my story sometimes, but it still sits in me very strongly, is there was a beautiful light shining the way as well. Like I found purpose in it, and I loved my mates, and I loved being on the tour, and as I said, I loved the fans and everything else. It was, whilst I was having the experience, there was a lot of joy in that, but I was just unconscious to what was unresolved underneath it, and that became the focal point, because I had to dig that out. I had to basically turn the Christmas tree into a proper pyramid, and build the bottom two layers properly, rather than have it on a fake little plastic stand.
And when you were growing up, you were talking about those goals to winning, and we've gone through that process of winning and the personality that came out of it, and now you're learning now. Are you a goal setter?
No, it's funny. Every now and then I go, oh, I might set a goal, and I go, oh, it feels weird. I'm more of an intention setter, you know. So I might be like, oh, we've been a bit tight financially, or noticing where we get in front and and it catches up with us, and we just staying in front. So I'll go, all right, well, I have an intention. My intention is to get the flow going so we stay nice and abundant and ahead of the curve, and it's in an enjoyable way. So that obviously it sounds more like an intention than a goal, but there's a goal wrapped up in there. And I love the saying, where intention goes, energy flows. So I see things as more of a quantum these days, and more of an energetic world. I love Nikola Tesla's quote, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. That all things are actually energy, and they're all vibrating at different frequencies. So we can see the frequency or the vibrational frequency of a leaf, which I'm looking out my window, and you can look at it and watch the leaf, and you can say, oh, it's matter, and it's got a certain frequency in that matter. But an emotion, anger has a vibration to it, love has a vibration, depression, enthusiasm, and then spontaneity has a vibration to it. Stillness has a vibration. So I just see everything as energy these days, and I basically see it as that, oh, well, if everything's energy, including me and including everybody else, how do I want to show up in this energetic world? With what energy do I want to show up? And therefore, what world am I going to create or co-create today? How am I going to influence and cause the world to be a bit different from the way I'm going about life? That's not hard. I don't wake up in the morning and go, right, I've got to cause. It's just I've just arrived.
It caused lots of vibrations today.
Yeah. What I'd say is we're causing tons of vibrations anyway, and people know this. So I've used different language, but they'll know when they come home and they're cranky and moody, and they walk into and the kids are do something and they snap at them. If I just change that from emotions to vibrations, we'd go, oh yeah, not a great vibration, And so if we just imagine it's all whatever goes out of us comes back. And whatever we do with what comes back into us then goes out of us. Slowly but surely we can understand that it's the most important thing to work on is ourselves and how we show up. So not a lot of goal setting, but occasionally I do get a bit specific about it and go, oh, I'd love to hit that mark in this period of time. Maybe it's a health and fitness goal, which is something it's actually done full circle and become big to me again in the last couple of years. I'm 56. And 57 soon, and I'm actually going, I've let a few things go, like I can feel what's going on with my heart health and, just my ability to bring the heart rate back down. Like, things I took for granted for a long time. I've been so peaceful and still, everything stopped. So I'm starting to set a few goals, but in general, it's an intention to get fitter and healthier again, things like that.
You did touch on stillness and energy in the same sort of sentence. It's a little bit tricky to understand, being a sort of confident, energetic person. Do you sit still? Do you slow down? What do you do when you do, if you do?
I've moved to a beautiful place in Currumbin Valley. My wife and I cut 2 of the 4 kids, although they're travelling and doing different things at the moment. And we're coming up for number 6 grandchild, and they just love coming out here. We're by the creek. We've got a waterfall on the property. It's just this insane, amazing place. And it's going to sound strange for people, but sometimes I get in the mode of, right, I've got to go into town and get some stuff done, and I'll walk towards the car, and it's like I'll hear this voice, oi, oi, and it's like, I'll go, what? Like it's like something trying to disrupt my busyness, my get the shit done, mode. And I swear it's like the rainforest going, hey, I was your best mate yesterday. You sat on the deck chair for the afternoon and hung out with me and connected with me. What, now you're going to leave without saying good morning? It's like this really weird, whatever level that's actually going on in my own mind, or like actually feeling the energy of the rainforest. But I'm walking between the 2 worlds of getting things done with enthusiasm and a smile on my face. But it's amazing, Chris, how many times the energy creeps back in of not just, because even the word getting things done doesn't sound that inspiring. Going into action and following through on my work sounds a little bit better, but it's kind of like being the best version I can be of myself, starts to feel a bit brighter. But as soon as I drop into task mode, it just invites the energy back in the door that little bit. I'm pretty aware of it, where I start wanting to win again. Win at the task, get it done, lock in the contract, get that deal sorted, make that advancement. And then when I get it all done, just like when Ironman racing, you win the race and you get a year to be the champion. It's like, I'll get the job done, and then I'm expecting the holiday and the, the drink cards and whatever else it is. So there's this old energy that pops in every now and then that comes in, and I'm very aware of it, because when it comes in, I feel really rattled. It's like, whoa, the old default setting is trying to step up and go, oh, I've got this, I'll cover this, I'll get shit done. And I have to go, whoa, no. So I've been learning, because I can be very still, and the vibration of stillness is just, it's obviously very still, but it's very peaceful, it's very light, it's very fine. There's a lot of love, there's a lot of healing, there's a lot of presence in that. I teach it. I teach people breath to bring that in. I teach people Qigong, teach people meditations, but I give people one-on-one sessions to clear their baggage out so they can finally feel good enough and feel still inside of themselves. That's what I do. So I get to do that myself a fair bit. So I can do that when there's nothing there to do. But my challenge has been doing that when the job list is piled up and I've got to go into action. Can the stillness stay there while I'm talking to the person?
And then you throw in this modern day society with a little handheld device that everyone's glued to. How have you dealt with that?
8 days ago, I got a Garmin watch. I had an Apple Watch for a little while. Yep. Got the Garmin watch, and you got to wear it for the first 3 weeks while it gets to know you and record your sleep and your heart rate variability and all that sort of stuff.
And all that sort of stuff. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm loving it, because, as I said, I've got a couple of fitness goals and a strong fitness intention. I'm like, the Garmin is a little bit more helpful for that. I didn't want messages going off all the time. I didn't want the full Apple Watch experience that I had for about a year. I'm like, no, I want to be free and peaceful like I am here in the valley, but I also want to be able to just go, how did my heart rate respond to that, And so what does that then links to your phone, And then I'm finding myself on my phone going, I'm like, hang on a second, my intention was to get fit and healthy and go out in nature, and I'm finding myself watching my phone and my watch all the time. So I'm working through that balance. I would say it's a net positive to have that watch, certainly while you get to know yourself, because it shows you feedback on pulse oxygen.
Well, I just have the basic heart rate, which is sitting at 94, so I must be engaged in this conversation, which is pretty good. And the step count goal for the day and the step count progressed through, so I'm about halfway through my step count at 11:18. So we're going okay.
Yeah. Well, I've got the one that gives you a morning report based on your sleep, right. And then it tells you all sorts of things like where your body battery is. So the first night I wore it, I woke up in the morning and my body battery was 100%, and it dropped down to 26% during the day, And then I've been doing quite a bit of fitness, but also a bit busy. A few little things starting to stress and get in my mind, some timelines, some looming timelines. And today I've got a couple of things to finish today. And I looked this morning and I went back over the 7 days, and my body battery's gone 100%, got up to, then the next day it got up to 97%, then the next day it got to 92%. Yesterday, my body battery at its highest point was 49%.
Right, you're not just crept, you've actually fallen off a cliff.
And the last 2 mornings, my training readiness score, which is out of 100, has been 1. Have the day off. And yesterday I actually went for a 1.2 kilometre really slow swim, because I thought, I get a bit of joy out of swimming, so I might just go for swimming and stretch my body out. So I didn't have the day off fully, but today it's a day off again. So I know it's still getting to know me, but it's fascinating, because I do feel the way it told me I am. So I wake up in the morning and I go, I don't think I slept deep last night, and I'll look up and it said not enough deep sleep, or I'll say, God, it was I think I got long enough, but it wasn't quite long enough, but at the end I got maybe some good REM sleep. I think I went deep and got some REM sleep in the morning. And I look up and it says calm, but not quite long enough, and it's
wow.
Like, wow, this is interesting, So I think it does better getting to know you after a while. But so back to the question, mobile phones are very interesting. And if I go back to frequency for a moment, this is a bit woohoo in a different way, but they don't carry a good frequency with them. They kind of download the world of busyness. It's like, you can imagine you have a little sugar lolly compared to having heroin,
Well, I haven't had heroin, but I've had a sugar lolly, so yes.
Yeah, neither have I. I've had the sugar lolly, but what I understand from it is this it's main veining, this like, whoa, but the sugar lolly gives us, whoa. It's a phone is a little bit more like that heroin. Like everything's coming into it, everything's coming through it. We all of a sudden start to know ourselves and how we relate from our post and how we relate to this, and how do people respond to a message, and like that's where I look for all my information. And now we're asking AI the question, and people are telling me all the time. They're saying, what's the one that everyone's using at the moment?
ChatGPT. Yep.
And so people are saying they finish and they go, "Oh, thanks, Chat. I love you, Chat." And
see you tomorrow.
Chat GPT will say, "Oh, so can you be a bit clear about what you want?" And they'll go, "Oh, sorry, yes. So what I was really thinking," and like they're starting to treat.
They show empathy a little bit, maybe.
Huh? Yeah, and it's good to show empathy.
My apologies, Chris. I got it wrong. Yes, your personality is of cancer where you were born. Yeah.
So anyway, I find I'm looking out at a rainforest right in front of me, and whenever I go sit in it, depending on how long I've been disconnected from it, maybe away. I do a lot of travel these days. I'm in Melbourne a lot. When I have to sit for a certain period of time, and in that period of time, it's almost like resistance. It's like it's hard to sit in it, and I want to pick up the phone and do something, and then I go, ugh, and I drop back into the nothing, into the nowhere, into the just here and now, just I can feel everything, and I can feel it as I say it because it's staring at me, the rainforest, and it's like a reminder that we are not, and it's back to that same lesson I shared earlier. We are not the busyness. We are not the winner. We are not the hero, the champion. We're actually a little spark of stillness and beauty and love that's quite creative, that can have good intention and do whatever it wants. But we've got to be careful because we can apply that to things that don't ultimately feed us the good stuff,
Yes.
So
paying the electricity bills, right? Yeah.
I'm learning to turn the phone off, Chris. I'm learning to go, ooh, no. This is off you go.
You've got a deep connection with nature. You've mentioned it a couple of times. I'm interested to know about your connection with other things, like when you get a coffee, you smell it, the mindfulness around that. Do you do that? Do you practice that as well?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've had half a cup of coffee in my life. So I got hypothermia in a race one time in Adelaide, and I was in the shower with a space blanket around me, and they came and said, "Here, drink this," and it was a warm drink, and I got halfway through it, and my heart was racing, and I'm like, what is it? Going, it's a coffee. I'm like, oh, my mum and dad grew up on coffee. Everyone, my wife drinks coffee. We go travel around Australia, and coffee's a part of where we got to stop. And the friends that we're traveling with, they want a coffee, and so it's a funny thing to be the non-coffee drinker. I wouldn't say I'm anti-coffee, but I'm also like, oh, coffee's a bit weird. Coffee's a bit of a substitute for normal good energy. So using that as an example, I think I tend to, because I can't even have a Red Bull, I'm not good at racing. So I tend to be more of a naturally still person. I'm favoured going for a body surf or a surf or foil surfing, where you're up above the ocean. And
not necessarily drinking or eating, but more just connection with nature.
And hugging my kids, going for a walk with my wife, or jumping in the four-wheel drive and driving a truck to a waterfall. I love those sort of things. But coming back to what you said, I did learn another thing from Eckhart Tolle. We were at a 5-day retreat with him once, Joe and I. And I learned one thing was, when you do the washing, hanging out the washing, hang the washing out like as if it's the most beautiful practice you've ever done. Put the peg on and feel the sun on your face and the breeze, and be grateful for, it smells good, the clothes are clean, look at this clothesline I've got. When you wash the dishes, feel the warmth on your hand and the soapiness. And that changed my life about 7 or 8 years ago. And every now and then, when the raciness is going on and I can't quite get back to the rainforest just yet, I'll just go, stop, be really present with what you're doing. Treat this next action or activity as a meditation. So if I was a coffee drinker, I'd be really sipping it.
Sniffing it and smelling it.
Yeah, smelling it. And I do that with I'll have a smoothie instead, and I'll go, I can feel the berries in that. So.
And Trevor, I'm going to go back to the scoreboard moment, which is
Mm,
a moment in your life which I talk about in some of the podcasts, which you may have already touched on, but
mm,
something that triggered like a Kodak moment where you, maybe it has altered the direction of your life. And we did talk a lot
mm,
about your era, so maybe it is in your early 20s. But is there something else that is your scoreboard moment?
mm. Phew. Probably going to get emotional with this one, mate, and just crept up on me. I didn't even think about this, but I actually think the most profound moment in my life that changed the course of my life was when my son TJ was born. Got 4 children. Every birth has been incredible. I'm mostly saying that for the other kids if they listen back to this. But there was more to do with where I was. When TJ was born, Jackie and I had broken up. And so we were separate. We were amicably separate, and we were loving each other best we could through the scenario. And so that was all acceptable in my mind, But I held TJ for the first time, and obviously as a man, I had this son, and his big brown eyes looked back at me. I'm at the birth and I'm holding my son, and the big brown eyes looked back at me, this perfectly pure being. And I had this moment where I went, holy shit, I'm not the man I wanted to be when my son was born. Like, I'm not actually the guy that my father was for me.
Mm.
It was like my heart was opened and broken at the same time, because I just went, God, I'm not enough. Not in a negative way, not in the way that the mind says I'm not enough, but I'm not who I'm meant to be. I'm not the guy that I'm meant to be. And it actually changed everything, to be honest, Chris. And I've shared this a couple of times, but I've never felt the emotion so deeply as I just have now. But I felt like as if I'd fucked everything up. I'd screwed everything up. I'd lost my way, And my father, when we were travelling around Australia, used to take my sister and I walking off in the bush, and then he'd turn corners for about 40 minutes or so, and having left the caravan on the side of the road somewhere with my mum cooking, and then he'd say, "Okay, Trev, show me the way home, show me the way back to the van," and we'd have to actually find our way back, And I learnt from 4 years of age to always know, no matter how far you go off the beaten trail and how far you adventure and explore, to make sure you find your way back, to know where home is. You've been turned around 10 times, but which way's home, And it's so funny, because that's one of the other great things my father did for me, is that in that moment when I realised I'm not my dad, I'm not as safe for TJ as he was for me, I realised that I'd been walking on down the wrong track for a while, and I'd turned the corner a lot of times, and fortunately I knew how to find my way home. And it was like, start telling the truth, to be honest. Stop serving the self. Stop trying to win everything. Stop trying to be the one. And I didn't know that at the time, but all I knew was I made the decision that I'm not going to be that guy that's not good enough to be his father. I'm going to be the guy that's good enough to be his father, however long it takes. And it sent me down the whole path. And to be honest, I probably haven't appreciated it enough, as much as I have right in this moment, for many reasons. I spoke about it yesterday. That little boy changed my life. He's now 30. And he's my best mate, along with my other best mates in the family.
And he calls you
And
a good dad, right?
he loves me. We speak to each other every day or second day. He's been on the Ironman circuit. He came to me once and he said, "Dad, got some good news." I'm like, what is it, man? He said, I finally followed in your footsteps I've made. I'm like, what? And he goes, I've just found out I'm going to be on the back of the Nutrigrain box next month. And I said to him,
I've got some lessons from that.
And I said to him, mate, that's awesome and beautiful, and I'm really stoked for you, but I'd just like to remind you, I was never on the Nutrigrain box. I was the Uncle Toby's guy.
Oh, yes.
And he's like,
that was Grant Kenny.
So we've been on different boxes,
Oh, right.
But But yeah, like to be, best mates with your son, and all my children are incredible. Like they're equals and best friends. Like we just have the most amazing time, most amazing conversations. Like have taught me so much and us so much, and vice versa. And so yeah, I think Tej opened that up for all of us. Opened me up, stopped me in my tracks. It's like he came along and went, no, that's enough now. It's like it wasn't my higher self that went, that's enough being a dickhead. I said earlier something has to happen to a loved one or whatever. It was TJ that came along and just went, I'm just going to sit here as a 3-minute-old baby in your arms, and I'm going to look at you and reflect back to you that, come on, this is not what we're here for, And best thing that ever happened, probably.
Another question I ask for my guests is their favourite sporting moment of all time. And before I ask you this question, about an hour ago, I was watching on YouTube a moment that happened in April of 2015, which is 10 years ago to this day, pretty much 10 years, where you and your son won together. And the emotion that came from that is connected right now with that.
Yeah.
So that's one of my scoreboard moments. Sorry, my greatest sporting moments of all time was about an hour ago watching that, and it makes much more sense now talking to you. I'm curious to know what your greatest sporting moment of all time is, and it can be included, yourself if you so desire.
Well, I'll just quickly tell you about that. TJ came to me and said he was 20, I was 46, and he came to me and he said, "Hey, Dad, do you want to do the Australian board rescue together?" And I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, well, let's just do it, And the board rescues, the swimmer goes out, touches the can, because there's 8 cans lined up. Each has their own individual can. They touch the can. When your swimmer touches that can, you can then paddle out. You paddle around the back of the can, pick them up, and the two of you paddle back together. It's a quintessential surf lifesaving event. It's held on the second last day of Aussie's last event of the day, Saturday afternoon. And we had 8 weeks, and I'm 8 kilos overweight, and he's like, do you want to do this? And I went, yep, let's do it. So I actually did the Pete Evans paleo way for 8 weeks. I trained, I turned myself inside and out. I was going so slow at the start. I had 10 seconds in me and then I'd blow up. And over 8 weeks, because I've got a lot of cellular memory in my body, I could get there a lot faster because I'd done it before. And my only goal for 8 weeks when I thought about it was, all right, I just want to pick TJ up as fast as I possibly can. I want him to be proud of me, proud of seeing his dad paddle out, like against all the other young Ironmen and world champions and everything, just proud that his dad can still come out and pick him up like that. And the long story short was we ended up winning the final. There's a YouTube moment. People can look it up. It's a bit of a classic.
And it was like this much, eh?
Bees Dick, sprint up the beach. We came from 8th out of 8 in the final. And it had nothing to do with perfection. It had everything to do with connection. It totally felt like it wasn't never meant to happen, and it was completely meant to happen all at the same time. It was this moment of completion. But I realised that that goal to pick up my son as fast as I possibly could and have him be proud of me related back to when I held him in my arms.
That when I picked him up,
I wanted to pick up my son and have him be proud of me. 30 years later, we had this 20 years later, we had this opportunity.
Sorry, it's 30 now, 20.
But yeah, 30 now. Yeah. We had this opportunity for me to put it in play. And right before that race, I was standing out checking the water depth, and I just thought, oh my God, I'm living the dream. And I had tears streaming down my face, just crying. Couldn't believe I was doing this with my son. And I see these two, because I'm looking down in the water, these 2 feet stand in front of me. It's his, and I look up and he's got tears running down his face as well. I'm like, and he said to me, I agree, Dad. And I hadn't said anything. And I'm like, agree with what? And he goes, we're living the dream. And I'm like, and he always was we were always so connected. He's always in my head. And I went, oh, would you get out of my head? Anyway, we had this hug and we're just holding each other, crying, just going, how amazing is this? Like for him, he had the dad he always wanted. For me, I was the dad I wanted to be, to hold my son and support him. And we're crying. And Mark Bennett's, Grant Kenny and Dwayne Tyers that I mentioned earlier, my 3 life-saving idols, are randomly sitting in the crowd together, sitting like they found each other, these 3 people, they're from different clubs, and they've found each other, and they're sitting together and not where we started. And when we crossed the line, and everyone's there going, everyone's watching in the crowd going, what do you think he's saying to him? You know, what do you think's Big Trev saying to Little Trev, you know? And then they're all going, I reckon he's telling him to keep his feet up or go a bit left at the start. Someone's saying, everyone's telling what strategy, and all we're going to go, I love you, mate. I love you. I love you. It was all about the love and the gratitude and just let it go. Who cares? We raced. We went from 8th first, won the final, followed this run all the way back, finished in a different spot to where we started because of the chops. Ran across the line. TJ had to turn away holding the front of the board so he didn't run into the crowd, which left me facing the crowd. They all jumped up in front of my face. Mark Bennett, Dwayne Tyers, Grant Kenny, right in front of me. The three people that I idolised. You couldn't script this. It's just friggin' incredible. And then this love, and they're all over me, and Dwayne's on top of me, spitting in my face and everything else. And so that moment was completely to do with the human spirit and love and life, and the bigger lesson I got out of life-saving, because life-saving is ultimately about saving lives, you know, not ruining them, you know. So that was that beautiful moment. But I will say, a key moment for me, I'm the paper boy at 13 years of age, 14 years of age, going on to 15. I'm pushing the cart around the back streets of Surfers Paradise, and I'm going from house to house. And at every house, the people in the house would tell me how we're going in race number 7 or whatever it was of the America's Cup. You know, in 1983, when we won the America's Cup after 133 years or whatever it was. And every house I got to, how are we going there? We're 12 seconds up, you know, and then I'd give them the paper and I moved.
So you're riding along getting the live commentary of the America's Cup.
And I did the whole paper, and in the end I got to one of the last houses and I stopped. And, you know, a 14-year-old boy shouldn't normally be going into someone's house, but I'm in on the balcony watching, and the old guy's got the TV facing the car. Look at this. And we're coming across the line, and I come from the land down under and all that sort of stuff. And I ran home. It was about 1.5 kilometres to get back to the paper shop, running with the trolley. And I ran home as a 13, 14-year-old thinking, oh, my God, you can change the world with sport, you know. And I think whilst I've not rated that as much in recent times because there's so many other ones, that one went into a 14-year-old boy's mind and planted the seed that you can do amazing things. And it's incredible to be an Australian.
Trevor, one final question. The 14-year-old boy that exists today in 2025 that is a little bit bullied at school potentially, a little bit, I suppose, quiet and shy, and things don't go their way, or they get put into a water cooler into their head and whatnot. What advice have you got for them right now in this modern day society?
Yeah, it's going to be hard to hear this advice or to understand it fully, but just allow it to seep in. And that is the reason you are getting bullied, or the reason you're having troubles, or the reason that you're having these difficulties is because there's something really special inside of you that's getting stirred up and moved around. It's almost getting formulated into some sort of a thing that's going to make a difference, or it's going to change the world, or it's going to change your world. It's going to allow you to be the person you really are. So whilst it looks like life might be happening to you, the next level of consciousness up for that 14-year-old, buddy, mate, it's happening for you. This is all, even the struggles and the challenges are happening for you because they're going to teach you. Even the things that are taken away from you want, it's going to teach you what you really want. You know, it's going to help you find the traits inside of you that help you get back what you truly want. So to trust that it's not an accident and you're not a victim and it's not a terrible world. The world has big plans for you, and sometimes it has to beat you up to make it, to help you in the weirdest of ways to become the person you ultimately need to be. I got beaten up, and I thought it was about getting stronger, so I never got beaten up. Then I realised it was actually about embracing the vulnerability that I was getting beaten up for in the first place. And then when I embraced that vulnerability, I realised I'm stronger than, you know, anybody can be, equal strong as anyone can be, as soon as I'm actually in that true identity, true self, you know. So the same lesson transformed itself through my life. So for the 14-year-old, have fun, don't take it too seriously, and just know if shit's happening, it's happening for you, not to you. And you walk back and go, what's this perfect for? What's it teaching me? And if you need to, ask for help. Ask for others. One thing I didn't know how to do, potentially maybe the understanding wasn't there because the thing I was going through was a bit deeper than maybe what others might understand. but that's still a bit of an excuse. But I didn't reach out. I tried to do it solo. So if you're having a hard time, reach out, talk to someone else about it, bounce it around, because it's not trying to kill you. It's trying to make you stronger.
Trevor Hendy, thank you so much for being on Scoreboard, the podcast today, to share your life and your journey. And you've taken the crown for the most beautiful Scoreboard moment so far in the 54 episodes. A tremendous story and connection with your son, which I'm so, a little bit privileged to have heard that story. I wish you all the best, in the next phase of your life and all the fitness goals and all that stuff that you're aspiring to become now, and look forward to catching up and keeping in touch.
Thank you so much, Chris. I've loved it, and I appreciate the space you hold, mate, because I felt at a deeper level today that connection with my son than I've felt for quite a while, maybe ever in that context. And so I hang up today going, oh, wow, what a beautiful life I've lived, and how lucky am I to have the most amazing people in my world. So thanks for helping me with that, bro.
You're absolutely welcome.